So good day, everyone. I've just clicked the admit all button on our waiting room list. I have to apologize for a few minutes delay. I would say that's not very German. We usually like to start on time, but we were experiencing some technical issues this morning, at least morning time in Germany. Thank you everyone for dialing in. I just muted everyone. I hope that's okay. Except of course my guest Manoj, who I think will have a lot of interesting topics to talk about today. But before I give you more insights into that, a few words about this Career Talk series and of course about myself. My name is Jana. I'm the host of this Career Talk series. I think today is our 4th edition, and I'm really glad to see so many participants here. We already have 31 participants dialed into the session today. So for those of you who dialed in, who are kind of newbies, a very warm welcome to our Mitra community. And for all of you who have joined in other sessions, very happy to see you again here. And I always like to keep these sessions very interactive. So you're warmly invited to ask questions on our chat. That's what we do these sessions for. So this is not a kind of format where we will just hold a presentation and give you a lot of input and then it's up to you to figure it out. But we've designed this format in a way that we just have a discussion. So today it will be Manoj and me discussing topics about German Mittelstand companies, so small and medium-sized businesses here in Germany. And you have the option to ask questions at any point of time in our chat. And to make sure that the chat is actually working, I would like to warmly invite you to also say hi and just make use of the chat right now and let us know where you're from, where you are based right now. Just say good morning or what time it is, depending on what time zone you are in. So that we know that you are awake and dialed in and that you're able to hear us, because up to a few minutes ago, we had problems with our audio connection. So I just want to make sure that everything's working, and that will be helpful for us as well. And in the meantime, I would love to introduce my special guest today, Manoj. And Manoj, I think, will also have the chance to say, you will also have the chance to say a few words about yourself, but I just want to give a bit of a heads up because I think you are a very special guest and I'm very glad that we have this session today because we had to postpone it once. And it was originally planned by my co-founder, Christoph, who unfortunately had to hand it over to me. But I'm also very glad to host this discussion today. And Manoj has been active in the Indo-German environment, I think, for more than 30 years. You will have to tell us more about that.
Almost.
Yeah, so a very long time. And you are also the head of the German Mittelstand Association office in Pune right now, the BVMW, if I'm not mistaken. So you are really working with German Mittelstand companies. And I know you also speak fluent German, which is very impressive to me. And I think also for a lot of others here. But no worries, we will not have this conversation in German today. Our audience, you don't have to worry about it. But it's pretty impressive. So I may have to ask you a few questions about that as well. And I think you also moved to Germany about 30 years ago. So you have and worked for a Mittelstand company. So you have already gone through this whole process of moving to Germany, starting a life here, getting to know the German environment and moving back at some stage. And I think that's very interesting because so far we mainly had persons who just moved here or who are in the process of moving here. And I think there's a lot to learn from persons like you who have already been through all of this. So now I've already said a lot. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about you.
Excellent.
Hi, Manoj. Very happy to have you here.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Because some time ago we had some issues. So
Yeah.
first of all, thanks for the introduction, Jana. You have also told everybody that I'm 30 years connected with Germany, so I am an old person, unlike most of the people here who are students or young professionals. Yes, I came to move to Germany in 1992. That was immediately a couple of years after the wall fell and East-West Germany united. I worked in Germany until 2008, out of which last 5 years I was working for a German company in Malaysia. Most of the time I worked in Germany was for international companies, but those were originally Mittelstand companies. Mittelstand is German SMEs. Those were Mittelstand companies which were acquired by some foreign multinational, foreign large corporations had acquired those. Last 5 years of my career in Germany, I spent with an aluminium foil manufacturer in Malaysia as CFO. After that, I came back to India and worked with ThyssenKrupp in Pune, and then almost 6 years as director at Alfa Laval, director finance. And after doing that, I decided to quit corporate life and work in the domain of connecting India and Germany. So it could be on industrial, commercial level, or it could be for students or culture. Germany is my second home, I still consider. And I have learned so much in Germany, and I would like to apply a lot of things here as far as possible. Of course, everything is not possible, but then to start using it, and especially in industrial domain, education domain, research, innovation in those fields. So that's it for me.
So thank you for the introduction, Manoj. I think that's super interesting that you also lived in Malaysia, because that gives it even more perspective in terms of what kind of differences there are also in the work environment, right? And that's also something we will discuss today. But first of all, before we dive into that, I mean, I think our aim today is to really discuss what Mittelstand is all about, and what to expect from that in terms of work environment, and also maybe a bit about living in Germany in general. So we will discuss both your personal experience and, of course, what's there to know about the company. And I think when we were preparing this session, this question came up, but I think I never really answered for myself in detail, but I always forget to ask it. So I will ask it today. So what does Mittelstand actually mean? I mean, I know there's no like one definition, but I think a lot of people use these terms even abroad. It's, I think, used widely.
Absolutely.
But what does it actually mean?
I mean, German, this Mittelstand is a term which is getting into English dictionary slowly. And in industrial domain, of course, everybody knows what Mittelstand is, or they think they know, because it's a bit complicated thing. Strictly by definition, and Germans go by definition mostly. So strictly by definition, if you say Mittelstand company is a small, medium-sized enterprise which is having up to 50 million euro in its sales and up to 500 employees. And almost 99% of German companies are can be considered as Mittelstand companies by this definition. But the term Mittelstand is used much more widely. Mittelstand companies in Germany tend to be more, I mean, if we are talking about industrial companies, so they tend to be more from industrial domain, B2B, business to business. So the companies who have the Mittelstand culture, which is long-termism, companies are owned by in the families for generations, 3, 4, 5 generations. One company I know of is in 8th generation currently. And even employees are also working with the company in 3, 4, 5 generations. Those companies are mostly in smaller towns. They are extremely focused. They have a lot of trainees, apprentices, and long-termism. They are in it for long term. I mean, they are not there just to grow the company and sell it off, cash it out, as it is called in business term. So they are in it for long term, and such companies are called as Mittelstand. Even if they grow, they love to call themselves as Mittelstand. I mean, we have in our BVMW is German Federal Association of SMEs, and I represent them in India. And we have companies like Würth, which has 14 billion euros as its turnover. We have companies like Sixt. We have companies like Budget. So these are huge companies, billion, 2 billion. Those kind of companies also want to call themselves Mittelstand because Mittelstand term has become quite popular. No, focus, quality, long-termism. This is what is characterizes Mittelstand.
Yeah, so that gives me a better idea. Thank you. And I think it's also very interesting what you mentioned, that this term is also used for companies which have already grown out of that, right? And that's something I see very often. I think it also applies in the startup domain, because here in Berlin, we have this big, vibrant startup scene, and you have companies like Zalando, which are still often called a startup, but actually they are not, because they have thousands of employees. So it probably refers very much to the culture you can expect, right? Like in Mittelstand, these family-run businesses, I think that makes it very special.
It's a culture, but I will tell you some statistics about Mittelstand, because in Germany we talk always about based on data and facts. So
I love numbers.
So when we think about Germany, we often think about the electrical giants like Bosch and Siemens and automotive OEMs, Mercedes, BMW, and Volkswagen and on, or even chemical companies, BASF, Bayer. But Germany's heart beats for the Mittelstand companies. Mittelstand is always known as the backbone of German, not only German economy, but of German society, German nation. And the Mittelstand companies generate about 36% of the industrial sales turnover. They make 58% of value addition. They employ 60% of Germany's industrial employees, and they make 83% of their apprentices. 95% of the Mittelstand companies are family owned, and 88% are run by the owners. Now, I'm not just throwing the statistics at you just to say that I know all this, but let us look at it slightly in detail, if you allow me.
Yes.
See, the 36% sales and 58% value addition. This could be interesting for engineers amongst us, who are learning to be engineers or young engineering professionals. That means there is a lot of engineering depth in Mittelstand companies. I won't say that Mittelstand manufactures and large companies assemble, but I won't be too wrong if I were to say that. 60% employees, that means 6 out of 10 people who are employed in Germany are employed in the Mittelstand. 83% of apprentices, that means 4 out of 5 apprentices, and Germany 52% people, young people go for dual education, vocational education, and 4 out of 5 get their training in Mittelstand. Only 1 out of 5 people are trained by large companies like Volkswagen and Mercedes and BASF and Bayer. 95% of Mittelstand companies are family owned. What does that tell us? That means they are in it for long term, generations they are owned by. And 88%, again, 9 out of 10 companies are run by the owners. So they don't have executive management as such. So they have their skin in the game, so to say. So the future of these entrepreneurs or these owners depends on the future of the company. So that is what it is. I mean, these companies are mostly in the countryside, in small places. But this statistics is extremely important to know it and understand it, and what makes Mittelstand.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting what you just mentioned, because I think, thank you for sharing these numbers, because I think people are often not aware of why Mittelstand is so important here in Germany, because they often don't know these companies. Because when I talk to job seekers here, I mean, that's totally understandable to me, because I also don't know a lot of these companies, because when I talk to job seekers here and ask them, so where would you like to work? I always hear the big brands because they are well known across the globe. And I think they also attract a lot of talent to Germany, like the automotive manufacturers and so on. But there's such a long value chain behind that, and a lot of companies who've been around for decades. And I think they are very interesting employers.
150 years, very common.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think it's very interesting to look into them. Of course, there are some, I would say, peculiarities of working for them. You already mentioned that a lot of them are based in small towns. So that, I think, is one reason why, at least when I talk to people, why people are sometimes hesitant to apply to these Mittelstand companies. And I know you've also lived in a small town for some time here in Germany. So maybe you can tell me a bit more about that, like how you got started here and what, where you got started, where you were living, what kind of environment that was.
Correct. See, my first job, and when I came to Germany, I worked with Price Waterhouse. I mean, it wasn't PwC that time. It was the Price Waterhouse and Coopers and Lybrand were in the process of merging. But that was just for 2 years in Düsseldorf. But after that, I worked in Kempen am Niederrhein in North Rhine-Westphalia, which is a nice, beautiful town. And the company was, again, a small 150, 200 employees company, which was sold by Short to ITT Industries, American company. So there was a process of Americanizing that company, and that's why they hired me. I mean, of course, I knew I had learned German in Germany for 6 months. Before that, before coming to Germany, also I had learned German, but then I spent 6 months dedicated to learning the language, and that was extremely important. And we are talking about something which is almost 25, 27 years old. So that time Germany was even less cosmopolitan than it is today. And rural and smaller towns were still, I mean, even if it was a multinational kind of an environment, the local operation was in German. I mean, day-to-day discussions, meetings, everything was happening in German. Then I moved to a city or small town, big town, I can say 50,000 population in Soest in Ostwestfalen, again in Northern Westphalia between Dortmund and Paderborn. So there I worked for almost 5 years, and that was again industrial company. It was international environment. Our company had sales offices or operations in Holland, in the UK, in India, in Dubai, in Norway, Spain, but the headquarters was in Germany, in Soest. So there again, the language culture was much local. And the final one I worked in Germany was in Cologne, but then I worked most of the times in Malaysia, and I was sent back to Germany, to Cologne, and I was going back and forth between Cologne, Grevenbroich, and Malaysia. So.
A lot of traveling back and forth between places that are very different from each other. But and would you say learning German is mandatory? I mean, you already mentioned back then it was because you were living in a small town and the whole work environment was in German. But looking at your daily work, because you still work a lot with these Mittelstand companies, so would you still say that it's mandatory to learn German if you want to work here for these companies?
Yes.
Yes, that's a very straightforward answer.
No, see, what happens? I'll tell you what happens. You know, the companies, I mean, these companies have 30% exports, so they are not, provincial or that kind of situation. Many companies have even much higher export content. Germany is an exporting nation, as we know it. But what happens is that these companies are based in smaller towns, rural areas there. So when even if you come as an engineer, if you come there, you have to deal with the local employees who are born brought up in the same town for years. Your customers and your vendors also come from a similar background. It's industrial background. Industrial Germany is still Germany. I mean, industrial Germany is still conservative. People are extremely friendly, very nice, but you get
Yeah.
along with them once you have started speaking German.
Jana
And
full live webinar.
Yeah. Sorry, someone
Vipul,
unmuted
I think
themselves. Please
Vipul,
make sure that you stay
Vipul Gandhi.
muted. Yeah, I've muted him. Okay, and someone was asking, so what do you think, what level of German language is required? So, I mean, naturally, the more the better, right? But it also depends a bit on the profession, I would say, right? So for engineers, for instance, it needs to be a high level, I would say.
It does, it does. I mean, like you were mentioning about people come to you and they want to talk about IT industry or banks or insurance companies. See, these companies with their headquarters are located in large cities. So if you want to work with IT, in IT environment, with IT companies, I'm not talking about IT as function, but IT companies. So then you may not need the knowledge of German language, and many times there even multinationals, German multinationals are changing the language of their meetings to English. So that is what it is. But if you are working as IT function within a Mittelstand company or within manufacturing environment, then you need German. I won't say A1, A2 level or B1, B2 level, that kind of things, but you should be able to understand them and should be able to tell them what you want to say. And then it happens. I mean, you can take help of English, you can write, you can draw, whatever you want to do. But the discussion opens up when you start speaking in German in an industrial Mittelstand environment.
Yeah, it gets much easier. I would completely agree to that. And that brings me directly, I'm jumping a bit between your personal experience and the actual needs of the company. Sure. So that brings me directly to the question, what kind of need or demand do these companies have right now? What would you say? What kind of professions are in demand? Because we always talk about the skill gap here in Germany. And I think the Mittelstand, the medium-sized companies, they really have the skill gap. They really sometimes struggle with finding talent because they are not that well known everywhere. So what would you say?
I mean, that skill gap is definitely there, mainly because of the demographic development in Germany. I have written a couple of articles on LinkedIn. If somebody is interested, can see on my LinkedIn.
Yeah, we can share them as well.
Also, Bertelsmann Stiftung has published a lot of reports, and you hear it everywhere. You go to VDMA, VDA, they always talk about skills gap, and if we don't fill that gap, then we will lag behind. That's what they say. See, Mittelstand's strength in engineering has concealed its weaknesses in digital technology. That is what has happened. I mean, they have been extremely strong on, but now everything is, it's not only mechanical, electrical, but automation or even automation. Let us say it was also industry 3 times, 3.0 times. Now in industry 4.0, you have to have digital technologies, digital transformation has to take place. So a lot of German industry is experiencing a big need of industry 4.0 applications. That will include data analytics, it will have artificial intelligence, machine learning, 3D printing, all those things I'm not expert of, but it's all cyber and mechanical engineering is coming together. And in Germany, that will happen. The industry 4.0 is a term which is coined by Germans, German bureaucrats, scientists, came together. See, because Germany has taken lead in industrial management. I was in Germany in 2000 and I was damn scared that Germany is not going to leave the onslaught of cheap goods coming from China in 2020, 20 years ago. But Germany not only survived, but thrived also during this period. And that happened mainly because of staying ahead in cutting edge technology, staying ahead in quality. And Germans, Mittelstand also is manufacturing mostly tools and machinery, capital equipment. And there you cannot have low quality equipment, because your machine has to run consistently, run without failure, or so and so on and so forth. Now that has happened, and Germany continued its lead, but now that won't happen any further unless Germany works on digital transformation also in industry. So obviously, the necessary skills come from STEM, science, technology, engineering, mechanical. So IT is extremely interesting in the industry. And IT, what we are talking about, where Indian IT had strength, that was different. That was based on business process outsourcing and having centers, shared service centers, and all abroad. So that was a totally different skill. But now it's becoming important about industry and IT connect. And even Indian IT companies are also taking lead, and international IT companies are also focusing away from BPOs and not away, but they are focusing more and more on manufacturing related IT. So there are a lot of jobs, and future jobs are also going to stay there, data analytics and AI, ML. So there is a huge requirement. German industry is also moving from offering products to services, servitization as we call it. So there will be a lot of jobs. Today's turner, fitter, welders, mechatronics engineers, automotive engineers, all will be working more and more with computers. So digital technology is extremely important. And German Mittelstand is also international. So there are a lot of jobs in sales, because if they go international, then they have to communicate with the other countries. So there are some of the jobs which I can think of.
But that's already a great overview. Thank you. I think that gives us a better understanding. And someone from the audience was asking if there's any age preference for skilled professionals, or if experience is much valued. So do you have any knowledge about that?
Absolutely. I mean, Germany's technological lead has mainly been not only or not because of engineers, I would say, but because of dual education. The vocationally trained people, and most of you would know that vocational training, there are more than 300 trades which have been identified in Germany, and there you get after your matriculation, you go for this training, and 3 to 4 days you work with a company in a shop floor environment, and 1 to 2 days a week you go to the vocational school and learn theory. So it's a practical and theory mix, blend of practical and theory, with much more weightage for practical. And that is why the people in Germany, even engineers or even this vocational trained people, are immediately employable. I mean, we have a challenge about employability of engineers or employability of any graduates, and that is not the same in Germany, because you come with that background and it is expected. That it's expected that when you study, you already use your summer vacations or winter breaks, whatever, to do some kind of training, get to know the work environment, get to know what are the functions and all. So experience is extremely important. Even in India as well as in Germany, I typically suggest people to have 1 or 2 years experience before they go for masters even. But those who have gone for for them, it is important to study, to get practical experience whenever possible. And it can be from any field. It may not be necessary. I mean, it helps if it is from your field, but to get to know the industrial environment, office environment is very, very much necessary.
Yeah, that's also what I often recommend when I talk to freshers. Like, I do a lot of trainings for students over here, and they are often worried that their previous work experience, because we get a lot of international master students in Germany, and they often already have worked before starting their masters here, and they are often worried that their experience doesn't count anymore when they start looking for a job. But actually, from my experience, it's a very great added value to their profile, because companies here expect people to have experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's I think that's a good add-on. But do you have any recommendations for freshers, so people who just graduated and maybe didn't graduate in Germany? Would you say they also have chances, or is it better to look for a job abroad first and then maybe apply after 2-3 years of working?
I mean, practical experience is important. Use whatever time you have to get, it could be summer job, it could be a warehouse job even, I mean, those are typically done by a lot of students during their breaks.
Yeah.
And for even your master thesis, if wherever you get an opportunity to get practical experience, use it. It changes you. It changes your nature. You become more confident, more smart. You know how to talk to people, how to deal with. Then as a fresher, when you go for a job.
Yeah. Okay. I also have, it's nice because I can see a lot of comments coming in.
Yes,
so
yes,
keep asking questions. I'm really glad to see that. I also still have a long list of questions, but I'm also happy to pick up some of the audience questions whenever they fit in. And someone is saying that he also already applied to quite a lot of German companies, also Mittelstand ones, but didn't get shortlisted yet. But so I hope that'll work out eventually. One more question about the whole hiring, and then I have a few questions about work culture as well. There was also a question about the openness to hire from non-European countries. So do you actually see that happening, that the Mittelstand companies hire from non-EU countries like India? I think we have a lot of people naturally from India, and you're also based in India. So does that happen, or do they prefer local candidates?
Local in the sense, Germany is not a classical immigration country like Canada or Australia. They have a quota for each profession every year, and they have a process. And, but Germany, but it's inevitable, and Germany is, without talking too much about it, is turning into an immigrant country. I mean, there is a big shortage of skills in these professions we discussed. But then there is another big shortage in healthcare field. I mean, we need a lot of doctors and nurses, and with the aging population, a lot of people are required in that domain also. So Germany has something called as pro recognition program, where they qualify you, where you can apply. I mean, it's not run in all countries, 9 or 10 countries. It's run by IGC's Indo-German Chamber of Commerce in India, and AHACA is they run it in, say, 8-9 different countries. They say whether you have, they go through your qualifications and tell you what you need to do to get a job in Germany. Now, for people coming with this kind of background to Germany, the chances, they come on a job seekers visa, so they spend out of their pocket. And the chances are good in the fields where there is a shortage. Clearly in IT, clearly in certain fields. I don't know, I mean, data analytics or Java or whatever. But between the people who have studied in Germany, Germans or non-Germans, I don't see there is a preference as such. I mean, so long as you know German, especially in Mittelstand, but also otherwise. So long as you have experience and you know the language, I don't think there is a discrimination or the differentiate that. So anybody with that kind of experience, that kind of qualification will be preferred.
Yeah, I would also agree to that. Like, that's what I see, because I can see people from non-EU countries being hired. Because we also support a lot with that. And also, by the way, you can find a lot of interesting information on our website regarding job search. If you look at our website, I will also post the link in our chat. We have a great career blog. We also have a YouTube channel, which is specifically designed for internationals who are looking for jobs here. So that would be a good starting point for you. And I can tell you, I can see people moving here and finding jobs even though they live abroad. And I've even seen this happening in the Corona pandemic, but of course things have slowed down a bit. I think it's a matter of being patient and pursuing this goal over a long course of time, because it also requires some learning in terms of how to adapt your applications and so on. But there are definitely, I think companies are open to hire because they have a gap here. It's not that easy to find.
And for the people who come from India directly without education in Germany, they are, of course, okay. They are advised by pro recognition here. But they might have some difficulties because companies have to arrange for their visa, and companies don't want to get into those formalities, bureaucratic hurdles. But that is not the case with the students who are there. No? They are on student visa, they apply, get a job, and then they are running.
Yeah, I think starting here as a student is always a good starting point, because you have the chance to get to know the environment and to do some networking, and also just because I also really like facts and numbers. If you look at the statistics, I think more than 25% of people here find their jobs through personal references and not through job portals or anything else. So that's quite a big number, I would say. I've really looked this up. These are kind of like really very recent numbers, and that's why it's very helpful if you come here and if you do networking, or if you are abroad, you could reach out to maybe friends and family who are already here and really try to connect with people, because that's always the starting point to find jobs here. Like also, if I look at my professional journey and a lot of the people I've supported here, maybe they got their first job through just applying, because I know you don't always naturally have this network. But once you're in, it's all about networking. Most of the next stages will come through personal contacts from my experience.
Yeah, but Jana, this is one thing I would advise everybody actually, is that once you come to Germany for studying, you start networking, start getting information, about job portals, start getting information about industrial organizations. Germany is a country of industrial associations. No? There are generic industrial associations like ours, but then there are industry-specific associations. They would have a lot of information. Plenty of information is available on government websites, and Jana, your website is a wealth of information. You get so much information on mitra.de. Networking also starts immediately as soon as you come to Germany, and not after you finish your education. So important.
Yeah, I totally agree. So in the student trainings I also always recommend start as early as possible. So if you are a student in Germany, start right now. It's the sooner the better. Sure. But I have a few more questions about the work culture. And of course, keep asking questions in the chat. I mean, we still have 15 minutes, so I will try to pick up whatever comes up. But I'm really curious about the work culture. So when you were working here, and also maybe in your work right now, what were like the key differences or characteristics of this work environment that really stood out, or maybe you also struggled with them in the beginning? I don't know. Like, I think people always struggle when they move to a new environment. What do you say? What's the key characteristic?
Of course. I mean, I'll talk more about the Mittelstand, because people don't know so much about Mittelstand. So, see, there was a Stepstone conducted a survey, and in which they were asked 76% of the people who were questioned from medium-sized companies from Mittelstand, they said that they would their next job, if they take a new job, that would come from the Mittelstand companies itself. 3 out of 4. So there is something good about Mittelstand, definitely. What is good about Mittelstand is that they have flat hierarchies. There are not many positions between. I mean, most of the companies, the owner knows you by name. The companies are also not that large, and they have a very good relationship. The official channels are also short. You don't have to send an application for anything, for investment, for any proposal to one place, then it goes to second, then third, and that doesn't happen. It's very short. These companies are long-term oriented, definitely, so that helps. Atmosphere is very personal. Since they are in a small town, they may be going to the same Verein club for sports or any other activities, music, and also they could be their neighbors also. So coming from small town, it has a very personal atmosphere, which you would definitely like. But definitely, initially, you have to get used to it. You have to give some time to do that. Mittelstand also has a possibility of lateral entry, that you are doing one position, you show a lot of interest in the things, you are very enthusiastic to learn new things, to get, and you get different opportunities. I mean, Mittelstand is already international, going more international, so they could have international opportunities which will be waiting for you because of your international background, because of your better English than any average German person could have. So these are some of the things which I can say. And everything is not good. I don't want to give you a rosy, only a rosy picture about the Mittelstand. There are certain things which you need to know about the Mittelstand, which you have to think about and act accordingly. Firstly, as I mentioned, Mittelstand comes not by definition, but it mostly comes from small town or even rural areas. But that is not a bad thing. I mean, within a short period of time, within half an hour, with Germany's fantastic infrastructure, you are in a bigger city or even large city, you can reach. I mean, when I was in Soest, I could reach Düsseldorf in an hour, and 1.5 hours I could be in Cologne. And you don't go there every day. You go there on weekends to meet friends or so. Then the company's future often depends on the leadership. You know, the leaders come from family background, and company has grown because the leaders have been good. But again, who is the current leader depends on that. Flat organizations makes it easier to contact with each other and communicate, but flat organization also means less managerial positions. In other countries, non-European countries, and especially in India, people are used to have different designation every couple of years. You know, it may not, your work may not change, but then you feel that, okay, from deputy manager, I have become assistant manager, I have become manager, but so that is not possible. In Mittelstand, a lot of people are satisfied in doing their own work for years and have a lot of things to do outside of the company also. Or if you are smart and company offers opportunities, then you can take those. They have rarely international environment. I mean, the companies could be exporting, but its exporting base is Germany. So it's not that they speak English in their meetings and all. Salary increases, again, I would say salary increases are also smaller compared to compared to the corporates. But you get a lot more freedom, and you get a lot of connectivity. So I mean, in Germany, you don't get a salary where you have to do a second job to sustain yourself. I'm not talking about smaller salaries in that sense, but compared to large corporations, Bosch and Siemens and Mercedes, the salaries will be smaller. Increase will also be smaller. Again, you are in a smaller place where the expenses are also lower. So these are some things which you need, and of course, language skills and intercultural skills are essential to join a Mittelstand company and to grow. But once you are there, I mean, I have done a good professional growth, I would say, but that is possible. I mean, once you know the language, you know people, you start liking your work, you show commitment. In large companies, that is a bit different. You know, they have excellent thing is that they have very good job description, a very good structure, very well defined process. But then you are you have a defined path. You know, large companies are mostly for experts, and Mittelstand companies are more for generalists or people who want to explore different things, learn new things. In large companies, you will make a good career if you just go in a vertical. So that is what I would say about work culture and environment about Mittelstand.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was very interesting because also what you pointed out in terms of salary and managerial positions, I think this is something where I often see things go wrong after a few years once people have already moved here, because they realize, like I often, like we also do consulting projects and we help companies recruit people. So, or we've been doing that a lot in the last years. And these employers, they often come to us because they, at some point, they struggle with the people who they hired on a global level, because the salary expectations and the expectations in terms of title and promotion don't really match with their work culture that they have. And I think this is really something which is very important to be aware of before you make this move here, because the salary you negotiate and maybe also the position you start in will probably be something you will be, I don't want to say stuck in, but you will stay with for several years, because that's kind of usual over here, and you can rather explore different departments and stuff, but we don't have that many promotions because of flatter hierarchies, but also because the system is just a bit different.
Okay. I mean, there are two factors I would like to add to that. One thing is that inflation is very low in Germany and has always been low since 90s or so. So salaries are often connected with your inflation of the country. Germany has kept its competitive edge. Germany has, in spite of high costs, Germany has been competitive, is mainly because the salaries have also not increased substantially during last 20 years, I would say, since 2000, when the Agenda 2010 was introduced by Gerhard Schröder. But real salaries have increased because the costs have been going down. That is one thing. And secondly, typically Germans, but especially in Mittelstand, the people in Mittelstand are focused more on work-life balance. So people are happy to be able to work for 7 hours, 8 hours a day, and 5 days or 4.5 days a week, and spend the rest of the time with the family, with any other activities, a lot of sports activities they do, music and whatever. I mean, and for that you don't need a lot of money, for doing those activities. You need a lot of time. So when you go to Mittelstand, you have to make a choice also, whether I want to spend time on my with my family, on my health, and going into nice environment outside, or I'm very keen on larger salaries and fast career growth. That you need to decide when joining the company.
And by the way, we also have a lot of, let's say, salary or contract negotiation tips on our YouTube channel and in our articles. So, and one suggestion I've also given there is that you can also negotiate the number of vacation days you get, or the amount of remote work and all this stuff. And that's sometimes easier to negotiate here than the actual amount of salary that you will get. So, because people consider it to be very important. So if this is something that matters to you, I think it could be very interesting to look at these kind of companies as well. But there are two more questions from the audience that I would like to ask you, and then I have one last question. First of all, there were a few questions which are related to the previous work experience that people have. So we have a few persons who probably come more from an academic background, like a PhD, for instance, and then also other persons who have maybe change their career path or want to change their career path. So here, my question would be, how important is the previous work experience? So does it really have to be in line with what the company is doing, or is there an option to change jobs as well? Do you know how specific companies are when it comes to that?
See, it's always helps when your previous experience, your education, and your future job is in line, in sync. But it's not necessary. I mean, it's not necessary to that. In Germany, also people change jobs or their career paths quite often. But then at certain point of time, you have to decide, this is my career. I want to do something in cybersecurity, or I'm doing something in product development, or I'm doing something in sales and marketing. Some point of time you have to decide. In India, I mean, we are used to a lot of job hopping, which I won't recommend, because to learn anything, you require at least 2 to 3 years in one job. So that, and also in career, you are all young people, so initially you can explore different possibilities. Work experience definitely helps, but doesn't have to be from the same field. You can even, and you should be able to sell it also. I'm bringing experience from different field and how it can be useful for your future employer. You should be thinking how you can link those dots and sell your previous experience. But don't change
that's
frequently. Please.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think what you said about connecting the dots, that's like exactly the point I always tell people, that here in Germany, it's fine to change careers, but you have to have the storyline, right? Like you have to be able to explain what you were doing and why you were doing it. And to have a goal, like we like to have like goals, very clear objectives. Where do you want to go? So if you have a good motivation and a very clear like focus, I think people will like it.
Absolutely. I mean, honesty is important when you go for a job interview, but then you are exploring one different type of profession now, suppose, than you're doing it before. There is a reason for that, and you explain it. You explain it clearly, and you are at beginning of your careers, so the employers will understand it. And similarly, if you can link it, I mean, if you have sales experience before and now you are in going to work in technical experience, or the other way around, explain it, how it can be useful for your current job. And no experience is useless, so to say. I mean, it definitely helps you and brings you further. But at certain point of time, then couple of years in your profession, then you have to decide the direction. So that you can make progress in your career.
Agree. Yeah. Then maybe one question that's, first of all, one comment. I think there were also a lot of questions that I did, or we did not answer right now. So for these specific questions about career gaps, like gaps on your CV, visa sponsorship, also particular scopes, I would highly recommend you to check out Manoj's articles and also our career blog. And I've posted both in our chat. So I have posted an example of one of Manoj's LinkedIn articles about the skill gap, which you could take a look at if you are looking to learn more about the skill gap here in professions in need. And also for these specific questions about visa and so on, check out our YouTube channel, because we've answered all these questions there. And I think you will find very detailed answers. If we don't answer a question here right now, I can guarantee you that you can find an answer somewhere in all of this helpful content of articles and everything.
Jana, can I make one comment before you go ahead? Just I would advise everybody. I mean, in India, we are used to a lot of spoon feeding from the beginning. You have friends, you have family with you, and you can just ask somebody and get information. I would recommend this Auswärtiges Amt, Living in Germany website. I would recommend DAD website. And I would recommend Mitra website. 99% of your questions will get answered on those websites. But you have to take efforts. You have to search for it. You have to read it. You have to listen to the webcasts and webinars. And so huge information is available on the websites. Yeah,
absolutely. Then one last question. To kind of wrap this up a bit, what would be your recommendation? Like, what if you were a job seeker right now? Where would you start? What are the top 3 things you would suggest people to do if they want to find a job here?
See, if I'm again talking about Mittelstand. If you want to start with Mittelstand, I would say language. Learn language well, and it's not only for Mittelstand. And Jana, I would say again one thing. I'm not saying about Mittelstand because I represent Mittelstand in India, and corporate jobs or startups could be suitable for anybody or everybody, that they have to decide. But if you ignore Mittelstand, 60% of the jobs are in Mittelstand. So you have to sink it in. I mean, if you ignore Mittelstand, then you are competing only in the remaining 40% field. So that's why, and knowing language is not a bad thing at all. I mean, most of the people who are currently on this platform, they have studied in their home country, they have done their education in Germany, they have done their master thesis, internship. So they have necessary qualifications for that. Coming to a foreign country, they are definitely adventurous, they are hardworking. So they should be feeling proud and confident about themselves. Get experience wherever possible, learn the language, practice it as much as possible, and use it. I mean, then there are a lot of websites. Mitra also put some things on job portal. BVMW has job portal. go to company job portals are there. And apart from Monster and Indeed, there are a lot of company websites, industry associations websites like VDMA, they could have. I mean, I'm not sure about everybody, but typically they have from particular industry domain. So I would say you have very good qualifications and background. You should get assimilated. You know, you are going global, so you should get assimilated in the local environment without losing your identity, and the future is yours.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. I think that's kind of motivating as well to hear. So I think that gives people a good starting point. And you mentioned all these helpful resources. So you can find a few of these links in our chat already. And I will upload a recording of our session, which will be shared with everyone who participated here. And I will link all the links, like put all the links in the comments that you mentioned, so that you can look all of them up, so that you can also refer to them. And I think this is really, there's so much input out there that you can make use of. It just takes a bit of time to research. So make sure that you make use of it. And yeah, with that, Manoj, I would like to thank you very, very much for this helpful input. I think it was very interesting to hear about your experience and also your advice. I think this is very valuable for our audience. And we have a short feedback survey. I'm going to share it here in the chat, and will also be sent to everyone via email. I would really kindly ask you to participate in it. It just takes a minute, because I would really like your input on whom you would like to see here as a guest after Manoj, because that was super interesting. And I already have the next guest planned. That will be someone who's working for a startup here in Berlin and his senior peer. So it will be all about startups, product management, app development, web design, and so on. So I will have a very interesting guest here who will also move to Berlin several years ago and has built a life here, and also runs a blog for internationals. So that's the next session coming up probably in July. But I really need your feedback on whom you would like to see, what kind of topics you would like me to cover. So make sure that you participate in the survey. And yeah, with that, I would like to thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you again, Manoj.
Thank you, Anna, for having me on this platform. I always try to communicate with students, and especially students who are in Germany or aspire to go and study in Germany. Study in Germany, it's a wonderful country. You get a lot to learn, spend some years working there, come back and help your own country after coming back. If you have any specific questions to me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any specific questions. Yeah, with that, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.
Yeah, then I will just write in the chat maybe your name again, but people can also see it. So I think when they look for you on LinkedIn, they will find you, right? If they want to connect with you.
Yes, sure.
Because I don't have the link ready right now, but I'm sure there will be people reaching out to you. All right. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Manoj, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to dial in, and all the best for your job search. Yes, and hope to see you again soon on LinkedIn in one of our other sessions, or in Germany. Let's see, hopefully. So all the best, and stay healthy, of course.
Everybody,
in these times,
take care.
Right?
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Take care. Bye. Thank you.